Okay. So, Yoga Sutra, book 431. Then all the coverings and impurities of knowledge are totally removed. Because of the infinity of this knowledge, what remains to be known is almost nothing. What is impurity? It is like the sensitive coating on photographic film. The eye and mind coat our mental film and then want to catch everything they see. If not for the sensitive film, you may see many things, but they wouldn't affect you because nothing would get recorded. A Jivan Mukta's mind is like an uncoated crystal clear mica sheet. It runs through the camera and pictures are shot, but nothing gets recorded. There's nothing to process, nothing to develop, and nothing to fix. And that means there are no fixations. I'm going to read the one from Centering Yoga. Sure, I have to write. Then because the veil over knowledge without end has been washed clean, there is little to be known. Quoting a traditional teaching, Christopher Isherwood wrote, "It is said that if you know clay, you know the nature of everything made of clay. Put another way, if you see only the deepest reality, the oneness is in everything that you see. All the other differences are of little importance. When we have given up attachment to even the highest form of knowledge, when treasure and we are one, when all afflictions and karmas have ceased, what is left? Patanjali says, then all coverings over knowledge without end are washed clean. After this cleansing, there is little to be known. When we stand in oneness, we realize that there was never anything to be discovered, never anything to be attained. All that we can ever have was always within us. We simply need a little to lift the veil that obscured what we processed. What else could we gain? What else could we learn? I recently read an eye-opening political challenge. Imagine that you only know that you are human. You don't know your sex, race, homeland, age, economic standing, or any of the other characteristics that we use to describe ourselves. Aware only of your basic humanity, what types of political decisions would you make? How would that be different from your current rational decisions and actions? If we see ourselves and others as only human and as full of humanity, what else do we need to know? Of what importance would the endless superficial differences that lead to suffering, fear, hate, and war be? How would our world change? That makes me think, well, this makes me think of that experiment that I used to do when I teach kids yoga. Jackie, I think you were with me once. The crystal with the food coloring.
Yeah.
And how, so it's basically a big jar of water, right? And then I use a clear crystal, drop it in the water, and we add different food coloring, and they're very quick to label like what the colors can come up as.
Right.
Like, they're very quick to say red is angry, and we mix it, and then I put coffee grinds, and you really can't see the crystal anymore. And we talk about how all these thoughts that come up and all these things that make us not see clearly. And then I pull the crystal out, but the crystal is still there, super clear.
Yeah.
I really like how the centering yoga, how it's described about if we see ourselves and other only as only human, the changes that would automatically happen in our world. You know, we would always look at each other like we are one and exactly the same.
Right.
Does anyone have anything to add? Or should I read the next one? 32 is longer. And the gunas terminate their sequence of transformation because they have fulfilled their purpose. This is a beautiful sutra to understand. The three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, constantly intermingle, and thus Prakriti functions. Why should they do this? Or, in other words, why does nature function? The nature functions to give experience to the reflected Purusha. In other words, the mind. The scriptures sometimes say Purusha itself, but the meaning is the Purusha reflected upon the mind stuff. Unfortunately, the Prakriti, of which our mental mirror is made, is itself made up of the three gunas. So it is not always the same. It's a sort of psychedelic mirror. Occasionally it is straight, but most of the time it moves around. If you stand in front of it, you see yourself as constantly changing. You forget the truth because you see it so rarely. Whereas the ugly image is almost constant. You mistake yourself to be the changing images and say, oh, I'm terribly ugly, I'm terribly unhappy, I am terrible this or that. You put yourself in the position of the image. So the duty of Prakriti is to torture the soul in every way until it really gets enough knocks and bumps. Then, at one point, the soul says, no, I cannot be affected by all this. I should stay away. When this understanding comes, the soul renounces the world. I don't want you anymore because the minute I come, you simply put me into difficult situations. You never allow me to be quiet. Now and then you give me a little happiness, but you seem to be bringing me mostly unhappiness. That is what is called sannyasa, or renunciation. I do not want. Why do people come to my talks? Because they don't want to be in the nightclubs. They don't want Miami Beach. They don't want Las Vegas. The very fact they want to be at the talks means they don't want the other things out there. Why? They've had enough. As the previous sutra says, when the soul detaches itself, there's no more impurity for it. And then when that happens to Prakriti, it will give an analogy to explain it. Imagine a mama with a number of children. They all go out to play and get dirty. When they return totally covered with grime, she puts them in the bathtub and turns on the shower. Of course, she can't clean everybody at the same time. So she washes them one by one. Once the baby is clean, what will she do with it? She takes it out of the tub and says, go get dry and hop into bed. Will she stop working? No, there are still more dirty children in the tub. Mother Prakriti is just like that. She stops functioning with the clean child. Okay, you're clean, go, and don't come to me again. My job is over with you, but I still have a lot of work to do with other children. That is what is meant in the Sutra Prakriti, the qualities and their continuous transformation. Stop their action on the free soul because they have fulfilled their purpose. They have given enough experience to the Purusha. Gunas always confuse the heck out of my head. I'm gonna pull up 432 here. Then the purpose fulfilled, the striding of the gunas ends as they bow fully to oneness. The final three aphorisms, aphorisms. I don't know what that means.
Aphorisms.
What does that mean? I can look it up later. Of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra lean heavily on the philosophy of Samkhya. The word Samkhya derives from two roots: Sam, with, completely, and Kya, to be named or known. Without going into great detail on the tenets of the school of thought, a prospect that I am not qualified to do, I can say that Samkhya attempts to lead its students towards wisdom through an enumeration of the distinct elements of reality. It is form of jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. Traditional commentators of Patanjali's work described it as Samkhya text. With Samkhya, an important theorem is the distinction between Prakriti, physical matter, and Purusha, which is the spiritual substance. According to these philosophers, there is spirit and there is the world, and never the two shall meet. The entirety of matter's role is to teach each of us about its own impermanence, therefore leading us to seek the permanent spirit. In other words, life as a whole is designed to disappoint our expectations. That's funny. One of the wonderful things about ideas is that once they have been released into the world, they are no longer owned. The originator can no longer hold claim to how they will be interpreted, expanded upon, and applied. So it is with much gladness that I can announce that while I find much that is helpful in the Yoga Sutras, I reject the underlying theme of aesthetic withdrawal, opting instead to follow its threads towards more world-affirming understandings and practices. After that lengthy introduction, let's move forward with the sutra at hand. Patanjali says that when we have discovered oneness, the gunas seen as both the stuff that weaves together physical matter and the underlying psychological states of energy, inertia and clarity, cease their striding. What does this mean for us in practical sense? One approach is to view the world, both exterior, which is the physical, and interior, the psychological, as leading us on a journey of discovery. As the Samkhyas implied, life has lessons to teach us. But if we hearken back to the previous sutra, we remember that once knowledge without end has been uncovered, there is little to be known. When we mature in knowledge, when we know the root of life, both in ourselves and others and in all things, the changes, differentiations, and overall unsteadiness of the world seem like little more than the colors of a rainbow after a storm. Beautiful and worthy of attention, but less real than what we believe from the stories of childhood. We can appreciate beauty without running after elusive pots of gold. There will still be pain, joy, injustice, and wonder in the world, and we still have a role to play in uplifting the good and correcting the bad, but we will do so from solid ground. We have learned life primaries lessons. Then the gunas have fulfilled their purpose. Having done so, they are not to be cast away as irrelevant or set aside as toys once treasured and long forgotten, but instead they bow fully to oneness. The world becomes the soil that receives the seed of spirit, the substance into which we integrate our lives. In my understanding, in my belief, in my hope, a practice of yoga does not lead us away from the pains and pleasures of the world. It does not remove us to safety, leaving life behind, leaving others to sink or swim. Instead, our practice turns us inward, deeper and deeper, until we begin to turn ourselves inside out, no longer hiding our hearts, but held within them and turning out towards life. The world does not need more hidden hearts. It needs more that are perilously exposed. And our hearts, they need to break open and allow the world to rush in. Jackie, do you have the Carrera book handy or no?
Yeah.
Does it say anything interesting or simplified?
Right. 32 or 31?
32.
32. The gunas terminate their sequence of transformation because they have fulfilled their purpose. The gunas are like teachers who give us the lessons we need to go beyond ignorance. Once the lessons are learned and the exams passed, we no longer have to study that same subject again. Our minds become free from the limitations of nature. The measure of Prakriti that composed the individual body and mind, that was until now experienced as our self-identity, a solid three-dimensional reality, begins to dissolve into the experience of consciousness as one freestanding, unchanging reality. The relatives of time and space melt into a cosmic oneness, the perfect pure awareness of the self. And he says, related sutra is 2.18. The scene is of nature of the gunas, whose purpose is to provide both experiences and liberation.
I guess it kind of makes sense that we don't need to learn the same lessons. But I feel that I just told Amanda yesterday, I'm like, patience and surrender keep smacking me in the face.
Yeah.
And I have so much more patience than I used to have. So I've learned so much about that, but it's still smacking me in the face.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But maybe they're talking about when you've gotten to a certain stage that, you know, you've learned that lesson and that's it done.
Well, yeah, but
for most of us, we're relearning and relearning and relearning.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't relate because he's talking to.
Yeah. I feel the same way I felt yesterday, which is exactly the same. Like, well, theoretically, that sounds very interesting.
Yes.
Now back to the treadmill.
Yeah. Same lessons coming up over and over again with just different faces.
Yeah. I mean, is the point of these sutras 30, 31, 32 is the point to give people hope? As in, you too could be Brad Pitt someday. You know? But it's a serious question. I mean, is that the point? You know, as in, keep practicing and this could happen.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
The whole thing about the Jivan Mukta seems so out of just seems so out of the realm of possibility. That this seems these sutras just seem very removed from me. Although a lot of book 3 and book 4, I guess have been as well. But and maybe that's just where I'm sitting right now.
You know what just popped in my mind? Mother Teresa. Like, she probably would get it.
Yeah.
Although lessons, like if you think about, we talked about this a lot in the beginning, the lessons learned, you might still be going back to the treadmill, as you say, Sue. But to me, if I had to be in a place where I was 15 years ago, now, dealing with what I'm dealing with now, I would absolutely not be able to deal with anything.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably grab a bottle every night and just go to sleep.
Yeah. Well, you know, treadmills aren't identical, even though they look like this mechanistic thing. You can raise and lower the incline, you can raise and lower the speeds. You can, and the more you do it, the higher the incline can go, and the faster you can go, no matter what shape you're in. You can, you know, so you're on the treadmill, but things are still changing.
And if you're not practicing, you're huffing and puffing really, really, really bad.
Yeah, and you're saying, why did I stop this? I should have kept that going. And then you say, well, I'm on now, so just suck it up and do it. You know?
Does anyone have anything else? 33 is short. Oh wow, this book is almost done.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's so not done, because we can start reading like from page 1 tomorrow, and we would still have like a ton of stuff to filter through.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll read 33. The sequence referred to above means an uninterrupted succession of moments which can be organized at the end of their transformations. Let's see what this says. When the guna striding ends, we see in our hearts that each shifting moment is joined. Each bows fully to oneness. Imagine yourself overwhelmed by an intense longing, a call towards searching that cannot be ignored. Following its lead, you leave your home and loved ones, not knowing the way that you should take or even the place you hope to find, but only that you must seek. To deny that deep need would be to turn away from your truest self. The journey is one of both wonders and perils. At times you are filled with vigor, rushing on to what you think you glimpse at the end of your quest, but much more often you wonder, doubting what set you afoot and grieving for what you have left behind. Then one day, like any of the other endless days of your travels, you see it, the final sign pointing you towards the end of your road. You rush on with excitement, leaving behind all the possessions you carried on the way, knowing that soon you'll have everything you need and in abundance. You reach the final door. You see the light of blazing fire beneath the doorsill, and you hear laughing voices urging you forward. You leave to the stoop, swing open the door, and step out of cold darkness and into the warmth, only to be blinded by light. As your vision returns, you notice a sight most strange. The laughter you heard rings from familiar voices. The faces you see are all known to you, gathered round the fire, beckoning you to a seat of honor, eager to fill your bowl with nourishment, are all of the loved ones you left behind. One of them looks up with relieved eyes, saying, "We've been waiting for you. What took you so long?" I believe that this is the same story Patanjali tells us here. There is no place at which we might hope to arrive. We are already there. Each moment is the counterpart, is joined towards every other moment. There was never any separation. The sequence, the striding of individual life instances was an illusion. None were different, better or worse than any other. They all bowed fully to oneness. Not only that, each bowing was a fulfillment, an ending of the quest for unity. Release was always at hand. So why did we never notice? Thich Nhat Hanh said something to the effect of, if you can't find your enlightenment watching the dishes, you can't find enlightenment. So why have we not been able to find it, to see it? Because we've seen only with our eyes. We need to instead see with our hearts. Nigrahya, meaning recognize, literally translates to down into, to grasp. We have to close our eyes and open our hearts and to hold on to what is there, deep. Then maybe we can open our eyes again and see every moment as the moment, every possible difference as oneness. I find the part where he says, or she, I don't even know who writes this. You open the door and like the people who, or everyone you think you were moving away from is there waiting for you.
I'll read Carrera for 33.
Okay, thanks.
All efforts the yoga has put forth have been directed at eradicating ignorance. The misperception, the illusion that self-identity is limited to the body-mind. This illusion has been aided by the ego's fascination with the dance of Prakriti, the never-ending play of objects and events that enchant the mind's attention. It's not so much that the ego is gullible, although it may well be and often is. Rather, it is that Prakriti's show is so convincing. It is a show whose very nature is perfectly designed to fool our senses, causing errors in perception. But remember that this show is not a malicious practical joke. It is a drama meant to entertain and educate us, to give us the experiences we need to attain self-realization. For example, when we look at a twig, our senses perceive it as a continuous piece of matter. Our perception of the twig's solidity doesn't change even if we know that science has proven that the twig in our hand is mostly vast expanses of empty space interspersed with the minutest of particles, which in fact have no material existence. The sutra teaches that change, which is how we perceive time, is in reality a number of distinct successive states correlated to moments, the shortest measure of time. It's something like those old cartoon flip books in which a series of sequential drawings are bound together in a small book. The difference of one picture to the next is so slight that we might not notice any variation, but when we quickly flip the series in front of our eyes, we perceive change. The cartoon figures seem to move. Each individual drawing is a distinct state that flits past our eyes, riding on moments of time. We experience the powerful illusion that this process can create every time we go to the movies. Just as with the cartoon flip books, motion pictures are in reality a succession of still pictures, each slightly different, projected in quick succession on a screen. It is because we perceive motion in the pictures that we can become involved in the story being portrayed. We may remain happily seduced by illusion of motion until something happens to interrupt the flow of individual pictures moving past the projector's light, or that shifts our attention from the screen. Whether it's a technical malfunction, a loud sneeze nearby, the inviting aroma of warm popcorn, or a friend's insistent tap on the shoulder, the result is the same. Our attention leaves the movie world and is thrown back to us and our environment. In other words, we return to the real world. The yoga practices are meant to bring us to a similar experience with regards to Prakriti. Reflect for a moment that through such practices as meditation, non-attachment, self-surrender, and total dedication to Ishvara, uninterrupted discriminative discernment, and study and accepting pain as a help for purification, we have come to this amazing moment, the moment when Prakriti, nature, dissolves. It loses its seeming solidity, its seeming unyielding influence on our senses. Yogis directly perceive that their false selfhood was constructed from the play of Prakriti and the influence of ignorance. They are now prepared to relinquish the misperceived self-identity, which has brought great suffering, in favor of self-realization, which brings permanent joy.
Basically, constantly dissolving illusion,
Mm-hmm.
getting past Maya. Which, if I think about 1 week in particular, or just one day, right? Or like, let's say 2 days, like the way things have been, you have like one day could be going good, and all of a sudden one little thing happens and you get stuck there, and the whole rest of the day just sucks really bad. And I go for a walk or for a bike ride or close my door and get on my mat and move through it and go back in, and then things are a little better, and the next day could be really, really good, and then again I get sucked into like whatever happens, and all of a sudden everything is so crappy.
You're describing exactly what I feel is going on. I feel like, I mean, on Monday crappy, but then I went for a walk, come back from a walk, came in here, closed the door, did some yoga. All right, it's okay. Can handle this. This is all right. Can move forward. And then I don't even know what it was that switched it back. You know what I mean? It's just.
And we're constantly getting sucked into whatever.
Yeah.
Last Saturday I got to lay down outside and read Untamed, and it was so nice. And then all of a sudden there was mayhem in here, and I burned all 5 fingers really bad. And I just left, and I was gonna text Amanda and say, I'm gonna go sleep at Rev because I don't want to be in my house.
Oh.
And I went for a bike ride, and I played Maha Mantra, just biking, and it's fun. Well, I don't know if it's funny. I don't know what these people think of me, but our neighborhood has a lot of Indian people and like a lot of Sikhs, and then they see this hot mess on a bike with eyes like this. But I biked 4 miles, and 2 miles into it, I was already thinking, all right, I think I can turn back and just go back home. And then it was fine. So coming back, I guess, to the practice and just going back and finding that crystal. The crystal's always clear. The murkiness in the jar is not. Well, it's 8:09. So does anyone have anything to add? So let's move into breath work, sitting up nice and tall. Close your eyes. And just for 10 nice long breaths, just allow yourself to feel first this morning before we move into anything else. Inhaling deeply from the very, very base of the spine to the crown of the head. And then exhaling deeply from the crown of the head to the very, very base of the spine. Allow yourself to feel the breath move through the body. And feel and sense any tension, any tightness in the body. Maybe the hips, maybe the lower back, maybe your shoulders or your neck. Maybe it's in multiple spaces and places within the body. Allow your breath to move through that. Every inhale, finding a little bit more space. Every exhale, allowing that breath to cling to that tightness and tension within the body, moving it out, watching it away, chipping at it a little bit at a time. Finding 5 more nice long deep breaths just like that at your own pace. On your next available exhale, slide out to the mat, let it all go. Inhale deeply. Exhale. And then setting up for alternate nose. Bringing the right thumb to the right nostril. Inhaling to the left. Closing the left nostril with the right ring finger. Pause. Exhaling right. Inhaling right. Close and hold. Exhaling left. Inhaling left. Close and hold. Exhaling right. Inhaling right. Close and hold. Exhaling left. Inhaling left. Close and hold. Exhaling right. Inhaling right. Close and hold. Exhaling left. Taking a few more rounds at your own pace until you feel ready to drop in. I'm going to set the timer. Bring the hands to the heart center. Find a deep, deep inhale. Deep, deep exhale. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, ladies.
Have a good day, everybody.
See you tomorrow. Have a good one.
Keep reaching for your crystal today.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. Amen to that.
All right. Later.
Yeah.